Good morning. Remembering D-Day. Early in the morning of Tuesday, the 6th of June, 1944, troops from the USA, Great Britain, Canada, and France, and no doubt small units from other Allied countries, which are probably beyond our general knowledge, landed on the coast of Normandy to begin the liberation of Europe from domination by Nazi Germany. Most of us know that. Well, I thought I did, but I've discovered that in one detail I was wrong. I had always thought it was a Wednesday, but no. The net is adamant. It was a Tuesday. And who are we, humble mortals, to argue with the great god Google or his high priest Wikipedia? This is particularly shameful for me for two reasons. One, I call myself a historian, so I really should have known. And two, I was alive on the 6th of June, 1944, and I actually remember listening to the 8 o'clock news before I left home to go to school. It told us about the landings, what the French have always referred to as the débarquement. You would think the day would have stuck, wouldn't you? While I'm about it, I'd better make a clean breast of something else. As I prepared this talk, I was forced to face the uncomfortable fact that I could not tell you why D-Day was called D-Day. Another black mark for this historian. V-Day, yes, Victory in Europe Day, obvious. And VJ Day, Victory over Japan Day, easy. But why D-Day? So I had to kneel before the great altar of the net once again. If I'd had to guess, I should have suggested that it might have been christened by the French. After all, it was their country that was being liberated. And as I said, they have always referred to it as the débarquement. Every bookshop and newsagent in Normandy to this day has shelves groaning under the weight of books about the débarquement. But no. Another theory was Delivery Day. Well, that struck me as a bit feeble. Sounds like a milk round. Surely the propaganda department could have done better than that. The third solution apparently came from one of General Eisenhower's staff officers. He said that it was the day the liberating army departed to begin its crusade. D for departed. Eisenhower's book about it, published after the war, was called Crusade in Europe. But I didn't think much of Departed Day either, almost like a remembrance service. The truth, apparently, as I understand it now, is almost too prosaic for words. It is straight out of strategic planning manuals. War Office bump. Whenever the military sit down to prepare for an operation, they have to start jotting down their ideas, naturally, long before they decide on the date for it. That depends on a host of unknown quantities like army training schedules, factory output of tanks, weather, tides, phases of the moon, seasonal winds, solidity of sand on beaches, and I don't know what. They haven't a clue when the invasion will start. But they have to call it something. It's just a label. D-Day, QED. By the same token, the actual time of the start becomes HR. D for day, H for hour. Not very imaginative, is it? Not very exciting. Bit of a letdown, really. It was events, obviously, which made it legendary. The greatest combined operations military expedition in the history of the world. And the stakes could not possibly have been higher. If we should fail, said Churchill, if we messed it up and lost the war, the whole world, he said, will sink into the abyss of a new dark age, made more sinister and perhaps more protracted by the lights of perverted science. D-Day then had epic written all over it. Anybody who lived through that time was never going to forget it. Year could follow year, decade could follow decade, and for those who remained and who remembered, it would be like yesterday. Nevertheless, the survivors have to accept the fact that generations coming after them could not possibly see those events, the Blitz, the hardship, the losses, D-Day, VE Day, the whole damn war, could not see those events in the same way. It was not their war. Understandably, therefore, people of my generation often ask themselves questions like, these younger people, are they aware of the enormity of the issues that were at stake? Could they possibly sympathize? Do they even know now what actually happened before, on, and after D-Day? Do they care? For that matter, should they care? Are those old men and women who know what they know nothing more than old men and women muttering into their bibs and whiskers, fit only to be humoured and given another cup of tea? I don't know the answers to these questions, but a few years ago I was given an interesting glimpse of them. I used to speak at the school debating society. One night, the motion before the House, I can't remember the actual phrasing, was words to the effect that it was time we stopped lingering over the war. Yes, they were great days and great things were done, and many of those people were heroes. But that was 3/4 of a century ago. It is time to make the world right for those heroes' grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Put away our tiny brownie camera snaps and our crumbling letters from the front. Shut the history books and get on with the 21st century. One member of that debating society after another stood up and said emphatically that we must not forget. And these were 17-year-olds. I found it oddly moving at the time, and as I recall it, I still do. Of course, there were other views expressed as well, but the motion was comprehensively defeated. I think that is encouraging, which I suppose is hardly surprising coming from somebody like me. To misquote the lady who first uttered the words, I would say that, wouldn't I? Goodbye.